I'm here now. I'm happy to see all of you. Thank you for spending this time with us. I used to be state treasurer, elected treasurer when I was 29 years old. Nobody else wanted to run. We had the worst credit rating in the country. Elected a governor, a Republican named Pete DuPont. He turned out to be a great governor, a good mentor for me. And he, in spite of having large deficits, he led an effort to reduce our personal income tax. Led our effort, and we did. When I was governor, I think for maybe my last 5 years as governor, we trimmed it back, I think, 5 times, 5 different years. So we ended up with, instead of having a 19, almost 20% marginal personal income tax rate when we stepped down as governor, it was probably closer to 6 or 7. And we always balanced our budget, always balanced our budget. And we ended up with, when I was governor, AAA credit ratings. We still have AAA credit ratings. So the question is, can we go out and collect taxes that are needed and that are to fund programs? Yes. We've shown we can do that in Delaware, and we make sure that people pay their fair share of taxes. I remember I used to hold, and I know my colleagues who served in the House with me, including the chairman, but I used to have a ton of town hall meetings. Once a year, I do a town hall meeting in each county, and we would invite the IRS to come. We'd invite the State Division of Revenue to come. We'd actually provide services on site on a Saturday to dozens, scores of people who would bring their taxes and say, I need some help in filling out. My last year as governor, the Delaware Quality Award was awarded. It was awarded to the Delaware Division of Revenue, the Delaware Division of Revenue. And because they provided great service, great service. People had an issue, they could call. They could come to a town hall meeting. And they had offices in all 3 counties. We only have 3 counties where people could get the help that they need. And I remember having in one of my town hall meetings we will actually do an exercise where we'd invite constituents to come and balance the budget. Balance the budget. And, could be, you have to, spending, entitlement spending, discretionary spending. And I remember this one time we were doing this exercise, having a hard time balancing the budget with the group. I just kind of let them lead it, and I just shepherded a little bit. But they couldn't balance the budget. And I said to them, I said, revenues is a piece of the pie, and that's an option. And it's one I'll never forget. This one lady in the back of the room raised her hand, and she said, I don't mind paying my fair share of taxes. I just want to make sure other people are as well. I've never forgotten those words. Never forgotten those words. And I've sat here on this committee for almost 20 years, and I can't tell you how many times we have our IRS commissioners come before us and said, in terms of things that they thought they needed for support from us, for technology, for people, the clarification of tax codes and so forth. But I think it's been a consistent message. But a big part of it is we need at the IRS, we need not just great leadership. I think we have that with Danny Werfel. We need the resources, human technology, in order to do a job. And we need to be able to provide service. When people have questions, to provide service, they call us and they get an answer and they get the straight answer. We get a lot of calls in my offices in Delaware from people who need help, and we help them. We help them. So with that having been said, I have a question, a question or two here, if I can find it. So bear with me for just a minute. There we go. All right. Thank you for your patience. All right. First question. And this IRS funding strengthens nation's fiscal health. So, question. This is, and I want to make sure I don't mispronounce your name. Is it Hu Wang?
Huang, thank you.
Oh, good, thanks. How does funding the IRS bolster the fiscal health of our nation? I think I've sort of set that up. But how would the proposed repeal of these investments impact taxpayer compliance?
So the services that you were talking about are actually one way. People think about compliance and enforcement as sometimes a scary thing, but sometimes it's as simple as having the IRS be able to answer a question for someone who wants to do their taxes well and would make an error if they couldn't get a straight answer to what they need to be doing. So that's part of it. That's the reopening of the in-person taxpayer assistance centres across the country. The other part is going after more pernicious forms of evasion and avoidance, and that requires highly skilled auditors who can pick through the returns of the wealthiest filers, who are often complex. And that all brings in far more per dollar spent than is actually devoted to those people.
Here on the Budget Committee. Senator Carper.
Thanks so much for letting me have a second round. Another follow-up, if I could, Ms. Wang. Do you believe that the role of non-compliant sole proprietors demands more attention from the IRS, particularly when it comes to wealthy taxpayers? And if so, do you have any recommendations for how the IRS should address this?
Yes, it absolutely does. And in fact, it's received so little attention because of the lack of resource of the IRS to understand what's going on that we don't have a great idea of what's going on with high-income tax avoidance using sole proprietorships. But pass-throughs overall, we know, are a really big source of tax avoidance and evasion. And part of the reason is, just like with sole proprietorships, a lot of the income that flows through them, it's really just on the honor system. The IRS doesn't have anything that they can check what the taxpayer says in terms of the source or the amount of income, and compliance rates on that income is less than 50% compared to 99% for W-2 wage and salary income.
All right. More broadly speaking, what steps should this committee and the IRS, for that matter, take to improve the tax compliance of pass-through entities? Does the IRS need additional tools or resources from Congress to support their work in identifying non-compliant wealthy taxpayers?
I think the oversight role that this committee has played in focusing the IRS's attention on partnerships and pass-throughs is really important. But additional tools that lawmakers could give the IRS is, again, the ability to sort of understand who owns what income when it flows through these spider webs of different types of entities. And that could include strengthening the Bipartisan Corporate Transparency Act and allow the IRS to be able to trace who actually owns what. And that's a really basic question that you need to have tax compliance.
Thank you, ma'am. And I don't mean to pick on you, but I do have another question. I'll let these guys catch their breath. But can you share with us how unequal audit enforcement has historically contributed to wealth and racial inequality?
Yeah, well, as audit rates on wealthy filers has plummeted, audits on low and moderate income filers has increased as a share of all filers. And in addition to that, we now know that due to research that the IRS itself put forward, black filers are 2.9 to 4.7 times more likely to be audited by the IRS, even at the same income level. And part of that has come about because there has been an over-focus on forms of non-compliance from refundable credits, even though they contribute a much, much smaller part of the tax gap than non-compliance by wealthy filers.
I'm going to have to move on. Senator
Yeah,
Carper,
thanks so
we've got all
much
this.
for giving me the time.
Thank
And thank
you
you all for being here today.
Thank
for your good
you
work.
for your good